and welcome back to the wonderful Finger Lakes of central New York. I'm on Skinny Atlas Lake, and it's summertime, and it doesn't get much better than this, folks. But right now, I have a project on my hands, as you guys know. I'm working on my 5065E four-wheel drive, and I am now at a point where I just about and did get the cylinder head off of this unit. So I took off the fuel lines as I promised, and you can see right here I took the injector line that came up and around. I took that off, and there were also 3 other lines that serviced each one of the injectors. Actually, they were the returns that went back, and I got all that off. So I was able to get the injector head after I logged the torque of the cylinder head bolts. There are 14 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I was able to get those out. I think they were torquing at about 110 foot-pounds. So after I got those out, I was, this guy here is probably about, I'd say about 110 pounds, 120 pounds. But I was able to tap it with the hammer, and I was able to pry it loose. Not pry, they say don't pry, but if you tap it with the hammer, you'll be able to loosen it up and then eventually pull it off the gasket. You never want to pry because you could damage it and then have leaks when you put the head gasket back on. So luckily I didn't have much trouble pulling that off. So here I am with the cylinder head. I did buy the valve seats and the new valves themselves, and the idea is I was going to reuse the springs and the outside here. I don't have the tool, number one, to compress these to get these off. I could rent it, I guess, or buy it. But inside of this cylinder head, there's also a housing, I don't know the exact name for it, that takes through which the valve moves, and those can wear out too. So there are certain tolerances that you got to look at, and I don't have those tools. So I think what I've decided to do is I'm going to take the parts I have for this cylinder head, and I'm going to take it to the John Deere dealer, and I'm going to have them look at the cylinder, make sure it's not the cylinder head, make sure it's not warped, and then I'm going to have them put those valves back in for me, check everything, make sure that nothing needs to be drilled out in the new housing to fit the valves, things like that. So I think it's going to be money well spent. I'll let you guys know how much it costs. I don't know right now, but I think it's the best thing to do, because I just don't have the tools nor the experience to I'd hate to go and put valves in. I think I could rent the tool, get the valves out, get the springs and all that stuff out, and then put the new intake and exhaust valves back in, get everything back together. But I just don't have the tools to check the tolerances. So I'd hate to get all this stuff back together after I work on the pistons and the liners, and then all of a sudden I have a problem. So I think it's just going to be money well spent. I'll let you know what that costs. So, back to this guy. The gasket's still on here. This is the old gasket, and I guess what I marked it front and top, just because I want to make sure that the new gasket goes on the same way. So I'll take this guy off here and set it aside with a new one. So at this point, I guess I'm going to get into removing the liners and the pistons. But first, I need to take off the oil pan. And one thing I've discovered right away is underneath here with the oil pan, let me give you a shot here. In order to get this oil pan off here, I've already drained the oil. But you can see the drive shaft is in the way. I'm going to have to take that drive shaft off, and before I take a stab at getting that oil pan off of there. But I already took the nuts and stuff off of here. But what you can see is, I already took the bolts off of there, so this thing is already sitting free. This is just a piece of plastic over which it sits and protects the drive shaft itself. So if I come back this way and show you, I got this one disconnected. Actually, this one broke here. But what you can see is there's a gear here, and this piece there's a piece right here, and it has a punch. So I think I'm going to have to punch this, and then this will free up, and then I'll be able to pull the drive shaft off, because I do not want to get into this and drain in the hydraulic fluid and all that stuff. So same up that end. If I go give you a look up here, see, I got the same thing here. I got this same size shaft, and it's got some hole punches to punch out. So I'll give you guys more details on that once I figure out how to get it out. Alright folks, so I've been playing around with the drive shaft here, and basically what I've been able to do is I used see this hole right here, there's a punch that goes in there, and see there's gears on this side, and I'm on the front of the tractor, by the way. This is the front end here, but there's a gear on this side and a gear on this side, so this piece sort of slides in here, okay? So basically I was able to, if I could show you here, this punch was in there. So what I did was, I punched it out. I started punching on this side and punched it out the other side here. And I just used my, I just used my punch tool and started through and punched all the way almost to the other side. And then this got a little too thick, and then what I did was I found a bolt just to fit in there, and took it the rest of the way. So this basically aligns inside here with this shaft. So now that pin's out, I think what I can do is I can slide this back like so. Try and hold the camera at the same time and do this, but there you go. So I was able to pull that piece back right there, and it came right off the shaft. So now I can pull this off the other side. All right, and then I can get to the oil pan and take the oil pan off. Well, guys, I'm back. It's been a few days. I finally got back to working on the tractor. I guess what I wanted to follow up with you on is that drive shaft. I was able to get that drive shaft out of there, which you can see right here on the front end. And by the way, I didn't show you last time, but there was another gear with basically a coupler that went over both gears on the backside too. So I had to use a punch tool to punch out that. And then after I was able to do that on the back side here, that shaft came right out. So the shaft is back here, and you can see here's the, hold on a second, sorry about that, guys. What we can see here is here's that piece with a punch, and this is the front side, and on this side is the another one of these guys. You can see right in there, there's the other one. So you have to punch both of them out. You got to do both to get the drive shaft off. So I was able to do that, but back to business here. I guess what I ran into on 5065E is once under here, I was the oil pan is off, but I had to do more than just take off the drive shaft. What happened here was, so what happened here is, you can see the oil pan's out. I'll get to catch up in a second. You see a stick in there, but basically the oil pan, let me back this thing up here. The oil pan sits right in here, okay? So when I was able to get that drive shaft out of here, what happened was this front axle right here was still in the way. That oil pan sits pretty tight up in here. So what I had to do to get that out without, I don't want to remove the motor. This is an in-frame repair. There's a bolt. There's a bolt that goes, there are two front bolts here. One goes in this guy here, and one goes over there in the same spot. You can see the hole up in there, right up in there. So I had to take these two bolts out, and in doing so, I also had to loosen up there's two on the front as well. Let me go around the other way here so I can show you. So right on the front, see these guys, I have 2 bolts on the front. So those 4 bolts hold that whole front frame on. There's some hydraulic hoses and stuff in there, but I didn't want to remove much more. So I loosened these up as far as I could get them. I wanted to get about 3 or 4 good grabs of thread. And I took the back bolts out like you see, the ones laying right there on the floor, the one I had. And then I jacked up, I found a spot right under the motor in the back in the tractor behind the oil pan, and I jacked this up. And what happened was the tractor went up and the axle stayed down. And that allowed me just enough room on the, because this right here went down to the bolts, but because I had the back bolts out of there in the back, that dropped much more, and that allowed me to get the oil pan out. So that's what happened there. So I was able to get the oil pan out, thank goodness, and it was a lot easier to work with. You almost have to. There's no other way to do it other than to remove those bolts here on the front axle, like I had mentioned. So that took a little time, and what a pain in the ass. You think it's one of the most easiest elements to do the engine repairs, to pull the goddamn oil pan, and guess what? It isn't. I was jerking around down here for a couple hours and trying to figure out what the hell to do, but I got it. So where am I now? Where I am now is after I got the oil pan off. Let me see. So I got under here and I took the pistons out. So you can see. Let me see if I can hopefully shed enough light in here. You can see. God damn it! All right, so I'm gonna right in here is where the number 2 came out, and this is the camshaft right here on this guy, and you can see up through there. You can see light. So I pulled the pistons for all 3. So basically, you take off the 2 bolts on the bottom of the piston shaft, pull that small piece off the bottom of the piston, and then I just basically push the piston right up through. You see there's enough room in there. I could get like a 1" by 1" piece of wood into and able to put it on the bottom of the piston, and I just pushed it with my own hands and even tapped it with the hammer, and bam, it came right out the top. So all 3 came out pretty easy. The reason why this is dark here, I wanted to show you this. This is the piece that the piston goes on the camshaft. They call it something. I'll tell you in a minute. I can look in the book. But your piston goes on there, and that's where you bolt it to. An old timer told me after you get the piston out, what you do is, see if I can get a better look. This one here you might be able to see. He said what to do is once you clean off the camshaft where the piston rides on the camshaft and put some electrical tape around it. Do that for all 3 cylinders or all the cylinders you're working on in any tractor, because when you start pulling the liner and you start cleaning the grooves out and everything out there to accept the next liner, there's a lot of shit that falls down here. A lot of dirt and crap, and you got brake fluid. I'm gonna try and clean this with non-flammable brake fluid. I got some cans. He recommended that too. But also, you want to cover these up because there's a hole in each one of these that pushes out oil, and you don't want to get dirt in there on the camshaft in those holes. Now you're into a problem, because when you get everything back together, then you're not lubricating that piston that sits on the camshaft here piece, and guess what? You're gonna reduce the life of your motor. So he said put some electrical tape around the whole thing, and then when you're done cleaning it out, you get your new liners in there. Then you take that tape off, and then he said use some brake fluid to clean that glue off of that's still on that camshaft from your tape. So that's what I elected to do. I thought that was a really good idea, so that's what I did. So I got the pistons out, and let me show you those real quick. Holy shit! Stuck on there. God damn it! All right, there we go. I'm a small guy too, and holy shit, tough to get out from under there. But there's a lot of room. I was stuck next to the jack. So, let's see here. Let me see. So. All right, hold on a minute. All right, so here I am. Here are the pistons. Let me go back over here to the motor first. So if you look down here, see there's quite a bit of room, and if I had a, maybe I do have a flashlight here, hold on a second. Oh, where the hell is my flashlight? I wanted you guys to get a look at that tape from the top side here. They call that a cam follower. Where that piston meets the camshaft, they call that a cam. I think they call that a cam follower. I apologize for not knowing. I could look in the book, but so you see down there, the cam follower is covered with electrical tape where the piston goes down through here, the shaft, and connects right to the camshaft. So I did that in each one of these guys, okay, just to protect it. Cleaned them off. They look pretty good in terms of wear, so I'm not too concerned about that. But that's electrical tape on those guys. So I got to pull these liners. I have a piece of wood under there because you can see this is the first liner. I'm pulling the middle liner just because it was convenient, no particular reason. It's just because of the way the camshaft was turned down there. I got a piece of ash. The old timer told me to see that ash piece right there. I'm just using the hydraulic jack to push up on the bottom of that liner, and you can see it's already popped off here. I got to get it the rest of the way out, but I'm just using the old hydraulic jack and with a piece of ash and just taking my time, and it popped right out. Actually, it didn't pop right out. What I did was I had some pressure on it. I could see the front of the tractor picking up here. So what I did was I just grabbed, a rubber hammer, this guy here, and I just started tapping on this thing, and lo and behold, the damn thing started coming out. So that's a plus. So let me go back over here for a minute. All right, so I'll give you a view of who I am. I guess I haven't said hello to you guys, but so here we go. Here's the piston. Pulled it out. This is, I just labeled them like this is. I labeled this the number 1 cylinder, and then we got 2 and 3 here. They say you should put the same parts back in the same cylinder, particularly the shaft. And I'm going to reuse the shaft, and I'm going to reuse this this bottom piece here to go back in the number 1 cylinder. I do have a replacement piston for all of these. Also, these bolts here, get them new from John Deere. You're never supposed to use these same bolts here. You always want to get new. You never want to use them. I guess the threads, from tightening them in and torquing them down the first time, there is some wear on the threads, so you never want to use those. So I got 6 of those from John Deere. Right here, here's one bolt. That's how they come. And this one's, what is that, R516-517. That's the part number for at least the 5065E that I have. Get 6 of these because obviously you got 2 on each piston, and you want to replace those new. So I got some of those. Next thing, let me walk over here. I'll get the piston. So John Deere recommends you get the new piston, the whole new piston for the top, or the piston itself. It comes from John Deere. It's got the rings on it already. Underneath here, it's got a new one of these guys in here. So this is replacement. It also has the new pins, the snap rings, actually not pins, snap rings. You can see that's a snap ring in there. So you take this apart, you clean the shaft, you put the new shaft, the existing shaft on here, and now you're ready to roll. Put those new snap rings on, and you're good to go. So this one, and for my tractor is oh shit, what's the number on that? I can get you the number on this. Actually, it's RE520573. It's listed right on the top here. The other thing is, John Deere has this set up so that when you put these pistons back in, I don't know if you can see there's an arrow. See that arrow there? That means the piston is aligned in such a way that it lines up on the front. All right, so we're back. Sorry about that, but so talking about these, so that arrow I showed you there, that means that this piston has to be installed with that arrow facing the front of the machine. All right, so the front of the machine is that way. That arrow is on there. It should be that way. So I would actually, I have these pistons sitting here the way they came out of the engine, right? 1, 2, and 3. So this piston with that arrow, this is going to sit this way. It's going to sit that way with the arrow facing the front. And again, I have this, the way this shaft came out. You got to keep track of the orientation of the shaft, and because this isn't perfectly symmetrical here on the bottom. You know, this piece on the bottom sort of is turned at I'd say it's probably at 7 o'clock, depending on which way you're looking at it, to the center of the bottom piece here. So what you want to do is this is going to go back in the machine. It's going to go back in the machine like that. It's going to face the front, and also there's an F on the shaft. That means this thing has to face the front too. So it has to face the front. So the shaft has that. So you got to keep track of the orientation of these guys. See, I'm all sitting the way they're going to go back into the machine with the engine facing that way. So and if you give you an idea of what it looks like this way too as well. So you know it's not perfectly at 90 here. It's at 7 o'clock. See, so I'm going to replace those pistons. I'm going to clean them up, get the new get the new pistons on the shafts, and get the new bolts in. I guess another thing I'll show you too here is the last thing related to these is when you take these guys off of here, these bolts. So let's take that one off. We're going to take this one off. Now you pull this guy out of here. Come on, baby. Come on, come on. One hand it gets tough. All right, so you know these are grooved. They're pretty simple in how they go back on, as long as you keep track of the orientation. It's tongue and groove basically. But on these guys, you look in here. There's a piece of metal. Now these pieces of metal that fit in here are called. They call them bearings. I mean, traditional sense, it's not a bearing to me. I'm used to the balls and everything with a bearing, you know, normal traditional bearing. But this is basically a piece of metal that lays in here, and also lays in here, right? And those are wearing components, so they need to be replaced as well. They call them bearings. So from John Deere, you can get those parts as well. If I come over here, they come. You know, you buy one box. Obviously, I need 3 because this is a 3-cylinder, but, you know, let me see here. So here you go. Here's a replacement, okay. And there's another one in there as well. So this guy here is, here, I'll show you the number here real quick. Here's the part number I have for this 5065E. Now I'm going to set this camera down for a second and show you. What I want to show you is what you need to do. You know, many times, you know, this tractor I have here, I got out of Texas. I got it at an auction, so I don't have all the history of this tractor. I tried to get a hold of the guy. You know, John Deere actually had the phone number of the guy who bought the machine. Even though I bought it at an auction, I was actually able to hunt him down, but he wasn't very helpful in terms of, you know, what he had several different machines, and he had a racetrack or something, so he couldn't really tell me what was done or not done to this machine, this tractor. But so it's important because back to this. So these, you can buy these in different thicknesses. You look at this on here, and it has a part number on here. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a part number on here, and these come in different thicknesses. So if this machine, if this engine had been rehabbed before, and say they had to do some work on the cam followers, in other words, they had to shave the cam followers so the diameter would decrease, then these would have to be, the replacements would have been thicker because they had to hone those cam followers down. So one thing that's important is when you get these, from John Deere, they're going to be from, you know, as though the machine was the engine was from the factory, and so they're anticipating that the bearings that are in here are the originals, and so you're replacing the original with an original. But the problem is, if the cam follower had some work on it, and somebody actually ordered a thicker set of bearings the last time when they rebuilt the engine, then now what you're doing is you're putting a thinner bearings back in along the cam follower, so that now your piston's going to be loose on the cam follower. Now that's going to be a problem, you know. I'm sure it's going to reduce the engine life. But so what you do is when you turn this camera here a little bit. When you take this guy out of here, all right, basically, let's take this thing out. This is, again, this is, I'm going to look at this guy, right? This is the original. I'm going to clean it off. Let's see what we got here. So, you know, I guess the first thing I could do is I could look at these and go, all right, are they the same thickness? Let's see. Yeah, they seem to be pretty same thickness there. The other thing you can do is, I mentioned on the new one there's a part number. Well, guess what? On the old one there's a part number 2, and guess what? The part numbers are exactly the same. So same part numbers, same thickness. That tells me that to go ahead with the factory one, that's the same thickness, so I'm good to go. If the numbers were different, I'd be marching my ass down to John Deere and asking them if this is right or not. It probably wouldn't be if the numbers weren't the same. So I got those. I'm going to replace those. That's all I got for you right now.